Hi, I'm Victor DeAnda, and I'm a GenXer.
Hi, I'm Darian Davis, and I'm a millennial.
Join us now as we loop back in time to revisit the movies stuck inside of our heads. It's the podcast about traversing the generational divide. This is FilmLoop. Welcome to the first episode of FilmLoop.
Yeah, man, this is it. First episode.
This is it. Why are we doing this podcast anyways, Darian?
Man, I think just so we can talk about the movies that we love, right? I mean, we kind of bonded off of these films, and you started talking when we first met a couple years ago. You started talking about all these great 80s films that I might have seen or kind of saw, and you know, the movies I grew up with in the 90s, you might have seen or probably didn't see at all.
Right.
So it's like, you know, we need to share these movies with each other. So why not just, you know, start sharing them together and, you know, put it in a podcast and let other people go along for the ride, right?
Yeah, I've always been a film geek, and it's always great to meet fellow film nerds. When we met a couple of years ago, when we started talking about movies, I realized, wait a second, there's a whole generation of movies that I didn't really see. I kind of saw briefly, or
you missed the boat.
Right. I missed the boat on those. And likewise, there's movies that I was talking about that you weren't totally familiar with. And I was like, wait a second. Why don't we just kind of meet in the middle, reach across the generational aisle here, and talk about the movies that we each grew up with?
Yeah. And I think, you know, getting into it, people might be surprised at some of the movies I haven't seen.
Quite a few movies I have not seen either.
Yeah. So we're going to go on this journey together. Everybody's on this journey with us. So
yeah, join us on the FilmLoop train.
Woo-hoo!
All right, we're back on FilmLoop, and this is basically what we're going to do each episode. Each of us is going to talk about a movie that we grew up with, grew up watching. We're going to talk about it and encourage the other person to ask questions, and who knows what'll happen.
Yep.
We'll see. We'll find out.
Many magical things. So to start, I'm going to go first since I'm the younger.
Go ahead.
So this movie I'm really excited about. This is a seminal film from my generation. Those who are, I guess, 35 and under should remember this one. Straight from Nickelodeon, straight from a classic skit. See if you can guess this one.
Hey, Alfalfa, would you please take my order?
Ooh, sorry, no can do. I'm the drive-thru guy. You need the counter guy. Hey, where's Ed?
Morning, girls!
This summer, Nickelodeon's hit comedy
Sorry!
hits the big screen.
Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order?
Good Burger. Starring Nickelodeon's biggest stars, Keenan and Kel.
Oh, man.
One thinks he's all that.
You have messed up my afro.
Why?
The other isn't all there.
Strawberry jacuzzi!
But now,
Mondo Burger's going to be the biggest burger chain on this planet.
the competition is out to swallow them up.
Ed, run! Get him!
And they're putting their buns on the line
This is what I call fast food!
in the battle of the burgers.
Your turn.
You're not like other people, are you?
Paramount Pictures, in association with Nickelodeon Movies, present Keenan and Kel
You kindly point us in the direction of the little girl's room.
in the family comedy with everything on it.
Why?
Good Burger.
Y'all ready for this? Can I take your order?
Nice. So, Good Burger. Good Burger, man.
Good Burger, yes.
The number one fake burger franchise to exist in film. I don't know if you agree or not. This movie came out in the summer of '97. It was directed by Brian Robbins, who, interesting director. He went on to do stuff with Eddie Murphy, Norbit, I don't know if you
Wow.
remember that one.
Wow.
Rasputia.
I missed that one.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get into that one too. Written by Dan Schneider, Kevin Koplow, I think, and Heath Seifert. And Dan Schneider, we'll get into him a little bit later, but he really is responsible for just a sense of humor that 90 Kids have just adopted. He's been, the god of kid comedy since the early 90s. So
And he's in the movie, right? He's the manager.
Yes, he is in the movie. He plays Mr. Bailey. There's a lot of people in this movie.
Right, and he was the creator of All That, right?
Yes.
Which was the hit TV show that kind of spawned this movie, right?
Yeah. He was the creator of All That. Actually, the character of Ed was in one of the skits.
I see.
Good Burger.
I see.
We did the Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger, can I take
Okay.
your order?
Right.
He actually showed up in a skit previously, and we'll get into that later. We'll get into some of the fun facts a little later
right.
on. But yeah, so again, this movie just one of those slacker comedies that Nickelodeon produced, and it was one of their second films that they came out with in association with Paramount. The first one was being Harriet the Spy, and it was one of those slacker comedies that came out in '97, featuring Kenan and Kel, who had already been super successful,
right.
easily recognizable to kids. And at that point, they come out with this movie, and it's really about two guys. Kenan playing a character named Dexter, who is just kind of going through life. He wants to have a great summer, and he ends up crashing his car, and he needs a summer job. The one thing he's been regretting and dreading to
Right.
actually have to do.
Right.
So through a pure accident, Ed actually causes the accident, and they end up working together at Good Burger.
So I have a question for
Yes.
you. What, like Sinbad? Okay, what's Sinbad? What is
Getting right into
Sinbad
it, yes.
doing in this movie? That's my question. Was he ever on the show?
Sinbad, no. Sinbad is just left field character that they threw into the film. I think he had a relationship with the director, so they probably just gave him a spot. But you know what? I think he was in a skit in All That once.
Oh, okay.
He knew Dan Schneider, the writer.
I see.
And he played one of the characters that Kenan played, Ishbu. I don't know if you know Ishbu.
No, I
He
don't.
played the father of Ishbu. And I think they brought him into the movie, Good Burger.
And what's the deal with his hair and his clothing? I mean, just kind of out there.
He plays this character named Mr. Wheat, and
Right.
Mr. Wheat is just this guy stuck in the 70s. I mean, he just, Black Power, Black is beautiful. He's
Right.
got this nice, Jerry curled afro going on. He's just looking like a classic, dude came straight out of the 70s Black Power movement.
And he's all about his car.
All about his car, all about his house, his mailbox,
Yeah,
just wants to look fresh,
Right.
fresh in 70s all over, right? So, there's a great moment in the movie where, Kenan has his accident. His character Dexter has his accident, and he just crashes right into Mr. Wheat's car, and they slam together, and their windows are right next to each other.
Right.
And Mr. Wheat looks over and says, "Brother Dexter, you just messed up my afro." It's like just a great moment. Sinbad just being who he is, and having that comedy is a great moment.
Now, I'd seen some of what was it called? It's All That, or just All That?
All That.
All That.
Yes.
So I'd seen some of that on Nickelodeon. I can't remember. I was probably changing channels at the time and just happened to see it. And some of the things I saw on there were pretty funny. It was amusing. And then later on, Good Burger was on HBO, I think, and that's where I caught it. And I'd always catch it at the same point, like a couple of days would go by. Good Burger's on again. So finally I decided to watch the entire thing. And I thought it was pretty funny. There was, some crazy moments in it. I don't know if you want to get into that right now.
Yeah.
Some of the questions I have for you.
Let's dive in. I mean, this film is just crazy. First of all, there's just so many like random, cameos in it. And,
right.
Just to start, me and my brother watched this film, on end. I did not see it in the theaters, but they had it on Nickelodeon, obviously.
Right.
And they played it on loop like when it first came out in '97. Like they would play it all summer, every summer. I'm pretty sure they had one day for 24 hours where they played this movie. They used to do stuff like that. So I'm sure, we just got sick of it to death, but we loved that film.
And this did have a theatrical release, right? It
it was in
theaters.
theaters. It was in theaters, so people went out to see it. And this was the start, like I said, of Nickelodeon releasing films,
Right.
actual movies.
Was it a big hit theatrically?
Theatrically, no. I mean, it based on research, I wasn't I didn't see it in the theaters, but based off of that, a lot of people, it got kind of mixed reviews. I don't think a lot of people were into it.
I see.
But again, it's ever since, they put it on Nickelodeon, and the years went by, and like kids like me, love that film. It's a classic.
And you said the VHS was orange, correct?
Yes, I'm pretty sure. Like, me and my brother had that VHS tape, and it was bright neon Nickelodeon splat orange.
Too funny.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so like one of the moments, and I'm probably going to skip around here. Just one of the things that like just right off the bat just gets to me is one of those classic scenes, the Shaq delivery scene.
That was great.
The moment, and I should probably mention, I mean, this is going to be spoilers. We're going to talk about the film.
Spoiler alert.
But if you haven't seen it by now, if you're not a millennial, I forgive you. But if you are a millennial and you haven't seen this film yet, you need to go watch this movie.
Stop what you're doing right now.
Yeah, drop it. If you're driving, pull over and watch this movie on your phone. It's on Netflix as of this recording.
Right.
So you need to go see it. Anyway, back to Shaq. So yeah, the Shaq. There's a scene in the movie where Keenan first starts at Good Burger, and he has his first delivery. He's hired on as a delivery boy,
right?
And he gets his first delivery, and it's to a particular person, and of course he can't necessarily drive, but Ed decides to drive him in the burger mobile.
Yeah,
and this thing is decked out. I mean, the front hood is a burger. You have like, fries and a shake on top of the car. It's like the most wacky Nickelodeon thing you could see in your life.
And you're probably too young to know this, but that car was actually a Pacer.
Oh.
It's an AMC Pacer, which had a very familiar shape to me. And so like the back end, you see that back part of the car that's got the rounded, the back windshield is kind of curved.
Right.
That was a Pacer. That's what they look like. And so they took a hamburger and put that on the front of that car. Which is pretty funny.
Nice. Wow, man. Yeah, I would have never gotten that.
Right.
See, there's something in there for everyone.
Exactly.
Just a little bit, So they get in this car, and they drive to the actual Lakers stadium.
Right, the Forum, the Great Western Forum.
Yeah, and they actually get to drive there, and they shoot there. And, they're driving down the highway, speeding down to get this delivery, and they drive right into the actual, like, tunnel inside the building. Just crashing, knocking people over. Old man probably flips around a couple times. And they finally pull up to the locker room, and they run into the Lakers locker room, and it's Shaq standing there. And most random cameo, I think. I won't say the most random, but I was not expecting that as a kid when I saw him in there. And I probably went crazy. I wasn't necessarily a basketball fan, but everyone knew Shaq.
Right.
He had just gotten fresh off of Shazam. So he's no stranger to film at this point. And, they have this great Chariots of Fire moment. The music's playing in the background, and they're like slowly making their way.
Yeah, that was funny. I wasn't sure why Shaq was in it, but maybe he saw the value. Maybe they asked him to be in the film. He's like, yeah, why not?
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing. I think they called in a lot of favors on this one just to get people to watch it. But
yeah.
Definitely. And they get him the good burger, and they're like, Shaq, how is it? He's like, oh, it's good. It's good. And that's all he says. That's it.
Right.
I think there's another line where Ed's like, how do you like it? And he's like, you're not like our other people, are you?
Right.
And it just doesn't respond, just this crazy, wacky character, right?
So Shaq had already done a movie. He did Shazam.
Yeah. Shaq,
okay.
Yeah, he did Shazam. I don't think he did anything else necessarily after that.
He did Steel. Remember
or
Steel?
not before that, but yeah, after that
okay.
he moved on to Steel, which I did not catch that one.
I missed that one too.
Yeah, I did not catch that one, but yeah, I mean, so you have this great cameo, and I mean, I should probably talk about Ed a little bit too. The character that Kel.
Kel.
Yeah,
I thought he was. I think he's the best part of the movie for me. He's just like this wacky character who isn't afraid to be himself, and his coworkers really feel for him.
Yeah, total surfer dude ripoff. He's just a super lovable character. He just is living life. It's just this like he wakes up and he's like clock. It's like that great moment. He's just dreaming about burgers and like being at work. And just loving what he does. And
he's very Pee Wee Herman. He reminded me of Pee Wee Herman if you watched Pee Wee's Playhouse.
Oh yeah, I love Pee Wee's Playhouse growing up. And yeah, he was very much that character, just a simpleton. Kind of going through life taking it very innocent,
Right.
just naive kind of character, which
takes everything literally. When the guy says, "Oh, you better watch your butt," and he's like spinning around watching his butt.
Yeah, it's impossible to watch your own butt. Yeah.
So if this kind of humor isn't for you, if that doesn't work for you, this may not be the movie for you.
Probably not. No, it's very literal, and that's the thing is so to talk about Ed's character a little bit. I mean, Kel Mitchell, the one who created. He actually created the character of Ed.
Oh,
he went
okay.
into his audition for all that way back in like 93 probably.
Huh.
He's probably like 10 or 11 at this point.
Wow.
But he does his audition for Dan Schneider and I guess some of the other writers. And, he started with this voice, this like, hey, I'm a dude, he's a dude kind of voice. And they loved it. And that's actually what got him onto all that.
Oh, wow.
And so from there, they transformed that character into Ed, first showing up in a skit called Remote Control, where he shows up, where this kid's able to fast forward, and rewind things in life. And so he fast forwards the pizza delivery coming to him. And Ed shows up at the door, and Kel Mitchell playing the character, he shows up at the door. And he does a spiel, and they loved it so much, they ended up spinning it off into the Good Burger sketch.
Wow. So Good Burger was a sketch on all that.
It was a sketch on all that.
Like a recurring sketch?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was one of the most popular sketches. I mean, you had so many different cameos. Like Ed gets married to Tyra Banks at one point. I mean, you have all kinds of people that show up in that sketch.
Wow. So they were hot. They were like, how long did all that run for?
Well, as far as I remember, it was from 94 it started until I guess 2000. They went on like a hiatus and brought it back.
Wow.
So really from 94 to like 2005 or so.
Wow. So you watched them grow up on TV.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's the thing is when they did the revival, the original kids didn't come back.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, you totally could see their growth, and Keenan and Kel spun off of that. So, but yeah, anyway, back to the Ed character. So yeah, I mean, it was totally created by, or not totally, but mostly created by Kel Mitchell, and then it kind of spun off from there. But that's the other thing too is there's this comedy that Dan Schneider like puts together. Like he has this very particular sense of comedy, this like slapstick, absurdist comedy.
Right.
And you can see it, in shows like All That. He went on to do things like The Amanda Show. Another classic for
Don't know that one.
Oh yeah, classic. Amanda Bynes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then you have Drake and Josh, which is another classic. That's I want to mess up their names right now, so I'm not going to even try right now. Josh Bell, I think, and I'm not going to try. All
okay.
Right. Anyway, and then you have iCarly, Victoria, stuff like that, which were a little bit after my time, but I still watch because the comedy doesn't get old.
Right.
So you have this particular sense of comedy that Dan Schneider instilled in all of these child actors. And, it still exists today. I mean, Kenan Thompson, that is his brand of comedy. Like you watch him on SNL now, and his brand of comedy is very absurdist. This kind of quasi-reality where he plays these characters that are totally out there.
Yeah.
But he lives in that world and he loves it. And you can see that continue with a lot of the Nickelodeon shows today that Dan Schneider is still directing and still creating.
Wow.
Like 20 some years later. So, it's awesome. So yeah, anyway, that's the Shaq delivery scene.
Wow.
Nice little
tangent there. Back to Good Burger, like the movie, I just thought it was really funny that nowadays with Blockbuster Video being gone, there's a lot of shots inside the burger joint, and you look in the background and there's a Blockbuster Video across the street. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, it's great. Well, and it's a good thing you brought that up because the actual location where they shot that Good Burger is, I'm trying to think of the name of it. It was like a burger joint. I think it was called like Ed's Burger Joint or something. I was in West Covina.
Okay,
LA.
right.
That's where they shot it. I think that burger joint is still there.
Wow.
If I'm not mistaken.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was right. I guess was it downtown LA?
West Covina is a suburb.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, Victor's the LA guy. I've only went there for 3 months. So, so yeah, I mean, they shot that at the burger joint there, and great looking space. I mean, it looks perfect for a Good Burger.
Now, what about? I have some other questions. Like, what is Carmen Electra doing in this movie?
Oh yeah. So let's get to the date. So to talk about the plot a little bit, at one point, Ed and Dexter are getting along great, and it turns out that Ed creates this sauce, Ed sauce, right? It's a secret sauce, and Dexter realizes, people love this sauce. Let me kind of make some money off of this so I can help pay back for the damages that I caused on Mr. Wheat's car. So he kind of he just basically kind of, shists Ed and just con mans him to death and just like makes him sign this contract where he'll get most of the proceeds that, Mr. Bailey, the manager, gives to Ed for the sauce. And it makes him sign this contract. And unbeknownst to them all that, Mondo Burger is basically trying to put them out of business for the sauce that's all popular now and taking business away. Mondo Burger is like the joint across the street that makes their burgers 3 times as thick. I mean, they look like, football-sized hamburgers. Yeah. And, they're losing business now because of Ed's sauce. So, one of their tactics to try to, put them back out of business, put Good Burger back out of business, is to call up Roxanne. Right. Played by Carmen Electra, who I don't know if she's done anything as clothed before. I don't know.
Well, she wasn't on Baywatch at the time.
I don't think at the time, but she ended up there, right?
I can't remember if she was or not. But yeah, she was the hot babe of the moment. I think that's why she was on the movie. Yeah. And yeah, she's the spy that Mondo Burger sends over to try to get the sauce from Ed. Yeah. And he's like totally oblivious.
Yeah, the bad dude named Kurt, he's like, send in Roxanne. Right. It's like, first of all, I don't even know how he has all these contacts. And we'll get into like the other contact he has, but it's like, all right, this guy is just really creepy. But not the greatest villain either, but he kind of looks like this weird, late 90s boy band-esque evil boy band character.
Yeah, and then they've got the Mondo Burger's got the silver outfits, uniforms.
Yes.
I mean, it's a classic 80s film trope where you have the struggling restaurant, whatever it is, and then you've got the big corporate guys who move in across the street, and it becomes a battle between the two places.
Yeah. Yeah. So they send in Roxanne, and Carmen Electra gets her screen time. I thought she did pretty great in this movie.
She was good. I mean, she didn't have much to do.
But
she played the comedy. I think years later she would be in, what was it, the Scary Movie?
Yeah, yeah. And now she's like sold into that franchise. She's probably done like 1,500 movies in that franchise. But so she comes in and like tries to like seduce Ed. And Ed, being the simpleton that he is, like just has no sexual tension whatsoever. He's just totally like oblivious to it. They end up going on a date. And before I get to that, I mean, there's a moment where he tries to convince. He ends up getting the date with Roxanne. He tries to convince Dexter to join him on this date. And Dexter, there's a young lady that Dexter is infatuated with, right? And so he likes her, but he doesn't know how to approach her. And Ed's just basically like, just ask her out, man, just ask her out. And they work together, at Good Burger. So Ed's like, ask her out. And he's like, oh, you're a chicken. Moo, moo. It's like just total Ed classic moment. And, so Dexter ends up asking the girl out. Well, Ed asks her out for him. And they go out on the date. And they go to this like crazy, weird looking, like, neon, mini putt-putt.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I've been to that miniature golf course.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I don't think it's there anymore. It was like a Malibu Grand Prix or something.
Yeah, I read that it's like it's torn down now, and it's like a,
Yeah, it was right off
Hampton
the
Inn
405.
or something, yeah. Mm-hmm. So they go on this date, and I mean, Roxanne gets like destroyed in this date. She's got the golf ball to her head. She gets, kicked in the shin. She's not treated well at all. She gets body slammed. I mean, she tries to like get Ed alone at one point, and he's just like, she's like, do you want to like get alone with me? And he's like, no, let's like play mini golf. This is what we came here for.
Right.
So it's just a hilarious moment. She ends up getting like a crutch, and she basically fails at her job because Ed is such a simpleton. But So that's a great moment. I would be remiss if we continued talking about Good Burger and didn't talk about the best scene in the movie.
What's the best scene in your mind?
Well, yeah, I guess I personally think it's the best scene, but I think it's objective. It's the insane asylum scene.
Right. I was going to bring that up too.
Yeah. It's this is like, I mean, they created a movie, what is it? Music trailer, a music video off of it.
There's the whole musical number with George Clinton.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you have this moment where they end up getting kicked because of another one of Kurt's contacts. They get kicked out into the asylum, and for him to try to get rid of them. And basically, it's just Dexter and Ed in this asylum, and there's this crappy music on, and George Clinton's sitting next to Ed, and it's like, man, this music bites, and Ed goes and turns up the music, and it's like this classic, George Clinton,
Parliament,
Funkadelic.
and
Funkadelic.
Yeah,
I think it's a song that they kind of remixed, but it's just this great, it's this great moment, and everybody remembers this. If you don't remember anything else about Good Burger, this is the moment you remember. Is this song and them dancing to the song, and like Nickelodeon played this as a music video, countless times, like over and over and over again. And in that whole scene where they're busting out, Linda Cardellini,
right?
I think I'm saying her last name.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, like she was one of the highlights, I think, of the movie. Linda Cardellini from Freaks and Geeks, the Scooby-Doo movies, Bloodline.
This was her first
film.
Major film appearance. Yeah,
and she's like the funniest part. She kind of falls in love with Kel.
Yeah, and Ed.
And my favorite part was they're trying to bust out of the insane asylum, right? They're being chased. They come into this room where there's this big lug, this big guy. They ask him, hey, can you smash the window so we can escape? Yeah. So he grabs Keenan, right? And he throws him through the window.
Oh, yeah.
So
great.
He goes flying through the window down to the ground below. Abe Vigoda jumps out after him. Then there's like a heartfelt moment between Linda Cardellini and Kel. And this is the highlight for me. Instead of jumping through the already broken window, he jumps through another window that's unbroken and smashes through it.
Just sums up the character in the movie so well. And again, Abe Vigoda, I mean, random, tough guy turned, old, fry chef who's like, I should have died years ago. That kind of a guy.
Abe Vigoda.
He plays he's a sweet guy. He plays this great moment in the film, and so props to him. I don't know if that was. I guess he did work after that, right?
He did work after that, but I mean, he was in The Godfather.
Yeah,
he was on that show. He was on Barney Miller.
Yeah,
he later, which had a spinoff called Fish.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he was around. He was alive for a number of more years.
Yeah. So I mean, great movie. I mean, Good Burger, classic film. There's so many other moments we could go over. Those are some of like the highlights, but what were Victor, some of your kind of takeaways from it? How you felt about seeing this essential millennial film?
I thought it was a funny film. I mean, when I saw it on HBO, I think it was the first time, I thought it was funny. Me and one of my old roommates, we actually liked the movie and would talk about the movie. It's just nonsensical. It's just fun. It's a fun movie. It's innocent.
Yeah.
I guess at the beginning, Keenan is kind of evil, making him sign the contract. He's kind of a manipulator. And then the coworker, the one he likes, I guess, is telling him, no, you don't want to do that to Ed, or she kind of disses him because he's taking advantage of Ed.
Yeah.
And then you find out they all kind of bond. They're all friends. Ed wants to be his friend, and he's like, okay, yeah, you can be my friend. They get together up on the roof. And it's like, where does Ed live? Does he live at the burger joint? Like, you never see him. I guess you see him at home at the beginning where he's in the shower with his clothes already on.
Yeah.
And, it's slapsticky. It's geared towards kids, definitely. But there's some adult moments. It's funny. And it's like the classic underdog story fighting the bigger corporate chain.
Yeah.
And you have all those tropes as well. I like when they're climbing up, they're sneaking into the into Mondo Burger, and he gets up into the straw of the big Coke on the top of the building. I mean, how does he do that? And then how does Keenan do that? That was my question. How's that boy getting up there?
Oh yeah, he's a big boy.
Right.
He's a big boy. You know, it's the funny part where Keenan's like, "What is this, American Gladiators?" You know,
Yeah.
this is great.
And then when he sneaks in to get that juice or whatever it is, the chemical that Mondo Burger's been using to thicken up their burgers, like there's a whole. He sneaks into the kitchen, right? Keenan says, "I'll distract them," and they chase him, and so Kel is still in there, and there's a whole shelf full of that chemical on a rack behind him. He could have just taken that, but no. Instead, I think he has an accident. He spills some on the burgers, and it just freaks out, and then everything, all hell breaks loose.
And then he has a moment of brilliance where he's like, "This is why I did this," and
right.
you know, and then I let them be a victim of their own foul play.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's like, oh, he's not actually dumb. You know, he's dumb in a smart way.
Right. The village idiot turns out to be the smartest guy in the room. Yeah. But I thought it was a fun movie. Yeah.
It'll always be a classic, and you know, that's Good Burger in a nutshell. There's so much more we could go over, but those are some of the best moments that I've loved and grown up with. So
it's a Good Burger, must see.
It's a must see for millennials if you haven't seen it. You could probably skip it if you're a Gen Xer or beyond.
Yeah, I thought it was fun.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, so my movie this episode is one of my all-time favorites. It mixes fantasy with roller skating, leg warmers, and a great soundtrack. Of course, I can only be talking about one movie.
Open your eyes and hear the magic. Universal Pictures announces the most dazzling romantic musical fantasy in years, Xanadu. Starring Olivia Newton-John, Michael Beck, and Gene Kelly.
Whenever you're away from me, wherever you go, you're never far away from me. Lover, I won't take a backseat tonight. Ooh, lover, get on my 2 feet tonight.
Xanadu. It's a love story about a boy and girl from two very different worlds whom no one can keep apart. It's a spectacular entertainment that will transport you beyond your dreams. Xanadu, where time stops and the magic never ends. Xanadu.
All right, so what can we say about Xanadu? You know, it was released in 1980. I remember seeing it at the Whitwood Mall in Whittier. We were on summer vacation in LA. Our good family friend had some kids, and their daughter actually had a driver's license. I don't think I had a driver's license at the time. She actually drove us to the mall, and this is the movie we saw. We saw Xanadu. Now, I'd already heard about it. You know, it's Olivia Newton-John. It's ELO.
Was this a summer movie? This was
a summer movie. Yeah, it was in August of 1980, I believe. Same year as Empire Strikes Back. So, yeah, the movie was.
Year.
What's that? It was a big year. It was directed by Robert Greenwald, who would go on to direct a lot of documentaries, and he was an award-winning documentarian. It was written by these two guys, Mark Reed Rubel and Richard Christian Danis. Rubel would go on to write Big Business, which is a 1988 movie with Lily Tomlin and Bette Midler playing two sets of identical twins. I remember the film poster for it. I never saw the movie. So as I said before, Xanadu, the film itself, it starred Olivia Newton-John, who was totally hot at the time. She was right off the success of Grease. Yeah. Gene Kelly.
She got some solid screen time on this one.
She did. Gene Kelly, of course, is in this. It turned out to be his last film.
Yeah.
Joining the ranks of great actors with horrible last movies, like Raul Julia, who was in Street Fighter, and Peter Sellers, whose last film was The Fiendish Plot of Dr. Fu Manchu.
Wow.
Terrible movies.
That sounds unfortunate for him.
Oh, and also Michael Beck is in Xanadu. Now, he was fresh off of The Warriors, but he's not a leading romantic man.
Absolutely
as we find out. So
I
of
was
course,
not sold on that guy at all.
No. So, okay, the movie, as some of you may know, some of you might not know, is about Michael Beck's character named Sonny Malone. He's an artist who he yearns for more, but he's basically got a job painting album covers, reproductions of album covers. And I don't know if you're too young to remember that, Darian, but that actually was a job that you could do.
If I could have that job now, I would totally do that.
So he does that, but he yearns for something more. He wants to be a painter. He wants to be a creator. He's a creative type. So he by chance happens to run into Olivia Newton-John. She's roller skating. He's in Santa Monica. He's walking along. She bumps into him and then kisses him. And he's like, "Whoa, wait a second. What's going on here?"
She's a fast something. She's a fast. Can I ask? There's a moment where she like beams in.
Right.
This like light beam, like they just absorbs in. It's like very Power Rangers-esque.
Yeah.
I just want to mention that. The way that she beams in.
She's a muse.
Yes.
Remember, we come to find out she's one of the 9 sisters.
Yes.
The 9 muses that Zeus sent down to Earth to be an inspiration in all the arts, music, dance, what have you. So that's what she ends up becoming. That's what she is. She's a muse, and she gives her name as Kira. Now Sonny Malone. He's trying to find out who she is. No one can tell him exactly who she is. She just kind of appeared in the photo. The cover photographer says. Then he meets Danny Malone, who is played by Gene Kelly, who is an old rich guy, pretty much.
Yeah.
He takes him back to his mansion. He buys records. He used to play clarinet with the Glenn Miller Orchestra.
Impressive.
So then Kira kind of met, Kira and Gene Kelly kind of go, wait a second, haven't we met before? Mm-hmm. You kind of get some little foreshadowing there that they may know each other from before. What's going on there? So Kira convinces Sonny and Danny to kind of partner up.
Yeah.
Danny's been looking, he's a contractor, he's a building contractor. He's looking to get back into the nightclub business. He opened a nightclub back in the 30s or 40s where he played jazz. Yeah. So now Kira convinces them to, why don't you guys partner together? Create something new. Mm-hmm. And that basically becomes Xanadu, which was the Pan Pacific Auditorium there in L.A.
Yeah, which is that still up?
It is not up. It was actually, it burned down in a fire in 1989. When I moved to Los Angeles in 1991, I actually lived around the block from there.
Wow.
And I would walk down there. It's right next to CBS, Television City, right there at Fairfax and Beverly. And I used to walk over there, and there was nothing left of the building, but I'm like, oh, this is where Xanadu was.
Did you ever go inside?
No, the building was gone by that point.
I guess 91. You just said that, right?
I just said it because I knew where it was, and the park itself is called Pan Pacific Park.
Oh, okay.
They built a new structure there that kind of mimics that Art Deco look. It was used in a lot of other movies. The last movie it was in was a movie that we may reach in a future episode, favorite of mine. It's called Miracle Mile from 1988, starring Anthony Edwards and Mayor Winningham. It was shot all in that same area. So let's get to the movie. Yes, it's a mess. I can acknowledge that.
You're the first to admit it? Yeah.
I'll admit that. It's a mess. It doesn't know what it wants to be.
No.
The director, Robert Greenwald, he could not shoot dance scenes for anything.
Can I say also though?
Sure.
I was looking into the notes and Kenny Ortega was one of the choreographers.
Yes.
Who went on to do High School Musical.
Right.
Before
that, he was Flashdance. He was Dirty Dancing.
Yeah. He is Hollywood's choreographer, basically.
He's a big name. Yeah.
Also, we might get the High School Musical. I wasn't a fan of that, and then Hocus Pocus, which he directed.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Some other notable people who worked on the film, of course, ELO. The soundtrack was a huge hit. Magic was a #1 chart topper for Olivia Newton-John.
It was a great song.
And there's some great musical numbers in this. I mean, I like the haphazardness of the movie. I mean, I love the opening, I'm Alive. It's an ELO song where the girls, the muses, come to life on the mural. They start dancing. Not shot very well, but And then they all kind of zip off. Light streaks go off into the distance to inspire the people they've assigned to inspire. So yeah, it's all over the place. But I like the musical numbers. I like the Tubes make an appearance here. They're in the rock band with the 40s mashup that happens. So the new wave guys, those are the Tubes.
Nice.
They were a big underground band that gained some notoriety with She's a Beauty in the 80s.
Yeah.
Not sure you remember that one. But then I like how the
Not
whole
me, no.
the whole mashup happens with the 40s band and the new wave band.
Yeah.
The set even merges together.
I was not sold on that.
No?
I mean, I don't know why the 80s was like painted as this like, you know, orgy sleaze fest, and the 40s was like, you know, this I guess, you know, because it's 40 years between them, you know, they were both kind of imagining the 80s versus the 40s, you know, but that whole sequence, I mean, the music kind of worked together when they put the 80s and the 40s together, but it was just very random. I didn't get it.
I thought it worked.
Nice. Good. That's good.
I thought it worked. And yeah, there's a whole scene also. Apparently, after they shot the film, I think they test screened it somewhere and it didn't do so well. So they wanted to add a musical number. And so Gene Kelly at this point said, no, I'm not going to do anything else. Here's my conditions. I will do one more scene if I get to direct it, if I get to choreograph it, and it's a closed set, like 5 people on the set. So that is that whole number that him and Olivia Newton-John do.
Yes.
And you can tell it sticks out.
Yeah.
Because it's well directed. It cuts well because Gene Kelly knew how to cut dance numbers.
Yeah. I mean, watching that film reminded me of like a lot of the classic, like Singing in the Rain.
Yeah.
You know, White Christmas.
Right.
You know, those kind of classic films where dancing played a major role, and I was like, wow, this is how you shoot a dance scene.
Yeah.
You know, you just fall in love with that. And you know, Gene Kelly. Part of me wondered, like, that moment was like, did they make this film just to get Gene Kelly back, you know, in the shoes, you know, back dancing, you know? And watching that moment was super magical. Like, if there's anything I got from Xanadu, it was like watching him dance one last time.
Yeah, Gene Kelly was an amazing talent. And yeah, I don't know if that was the reason he came. I think maybe they signed Olivia Newton-John first, and then I think Gene Kelly was like, okay, maybe I'll do this. Yeah. And that's the only number they do together. They sing together. They dance together. That was it. And then they have him roller skating. Well, I don't know. At the end of the film, I mean,
he's just milking the camera, man. He's just like,
and I don't think he was doing it for the paycheck, perhaps, but unfortunately, that was his last film.
He seemed like he had a lot of fun, though. I mean, he really, it's like he seemed very mentorish. You know, he played that role in the film, but I think beyond that, he just seemed like he enjoyed the experience, you know, even though he knew it wasn't going to be a hit. I mean, they could, you know, once it came out, I think he even admitted that, but you know, he looked like he was having fun.
Yeah. Another thing I read was that and it shows, I think, was that the script wasn't even finished when they started filming this movie. You know, they were still writing it. They didn't know what the ending was going to be. And that's why it looks the way it does. I mean, even like the last number in Xanadu, you know, it's opening night. Xanadu opens. Gene Kelly is roller skating around, and they're doing this whole number. And then Olivia Newton-John makes one last appearance. And that whole thing is kind of a mashup of all these, like, they were trying to appeal to all these different music fans. Like, first she sings Xanadu, so it's the big Xanadu number. Then they do this like electronic thing, like, let's appeal to the electronic people. And then it turns into a country western thing. Yeah. Then it segues into a rock and roll kind of thing. Then we come back to Xanadu again.
Yeah. I didn't understand. I guess because she's a muse, she just understands all I mean, Olivia Newton-John sung in all those genres pretty well.
Right.
I mean, she held her own. She got to keep her accent in the movie.
Yeah.
Which was
exactly
fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, she stuck it through. She carried the weight of that film on her shoulders. I mean, well, you'll probably get to it, but the one scene where, you know, it's just her for like 500 minutes singing, I can't even remember the song, but it's just a still shot that just pans in closer and closer into this one song. It's like you sit there looking at, which, you know, I'm not complaining, you know, looking at Olivia Newton-John, but it's a very long sequence. She just has so much responsibility put on her for this film.
Yeah, she's carrying the movie, basically. And yeah, she wasn't even attached to the film originally. They were it was just like a run of the mill. I watched the extra on the DVD or on the Blu-ray with the writer. He was talking about his script he had written was about a friend of his, a musician who lived on the Venice boardwalk and had a girlfriend, and it was about a third guy and who was just pining for his friend's girlfriend. And then that kind of turned into Xanadu, believe it or not, because some other people got involved. There's some big hitters in on the producing side. There was Lawrence Gordon, Joel Silver, of all people, worked on this movie. And Joel Gordon, was responsible for all kinds of things like Hooper, The Warriors, Die Hard, Predator, Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
I mean, Joel Silver, another heavyweight. His films include Roadhouse, Lethal Weapon, The Last Boy Scout, even The Matrix. I mean, those guys are crazy. They're Hollywood. And at the time this film came out, roller skating was huge. There had already been a couple of movies, like in '79. There was Roller Boogie with Linda Blair, believe it or not, and another movie called Skate Town, USA. Both released in 1979. And so roller skating was huge at this time. So that's what they kind of took this guy's original script and said, let's put some roller skating in it and some disco.
Yeah. And, that kind of took me back to like, my mom would tell me stories about how she would go to the roller rink and just like, do all kind of tricks. Like she's like, I used to, do backwards with my legs crossed and this, that, and the other. And
right.
It reminded, it's like, living that out was like, kind of seeing a younger version of my mom, like doing, doing that stuff. So, I mean, that part was fun. That was fun.
And did she tell you about a couple skate only?
Oh yeah. Yeah. They had all that.
Slow skate only.
Yeah.
They would do all that stuff. I remember after I moved to LA, I even looked for that alleyway in Venice where the mural is, and it actually was an effect. And you can tell if you look at the film really closely enough, it's actually a still. It's a still image. Like, remember there's a scene near the end where he's like, oh, I got to get her back.
Right. Yeah.
So he's like kind of circling. He keeps looking down the alleyway like, okay, I'm going to just skate into this mural. Should I not do it?
Yeah.
He keeps looking at it. I would have never
decided that decision. I don't know why.
Right. He keeps looking at it, and they keep cutting back to the alleyway, and that's actually like a still photo.
That makes
so.
A lot
There's
of sense.
actually, I read there was a storefront right there down that alley, and then they just put the mural there optically. So it was an optical effect, but I know I spent a couple of times trying to find that alleyway off of the boardwalk in Venice.
Never found it.
Didn't find it.
No. Well, in that moment, like, So, I mean, can we talk about that? The neon heaven scene?
Yeah.
I mean, I got really confused. Like, okay, now what is this? Where have we gone here? And he jumps into the brick wall, and now he's basically in heaven, and it's like this '80s neon dream.
Is it heaven or is it? Who knows where he is?
We don't know.
Just, I mean, it's a fantasy. Yeah, right. It's kind of a mishmash of fantasy and reality and musical.
Yeah.
And it's all over the map. I keep saying I agree, but I just love the whole idea. It's like the artist and his muse. He gets inspired.
Yeah.
That thing. You've got Olivia Newton-John and Leg Warmers. That was totally big at the time as well.
Yeah.
I remember back in, I think it was 2005, maybe 2010. Anyways, it was like the 30th anniversary of Xanadu, and they were having a screening at the Alex Theater in Glendale, and they had a costume contest, and they had all these girls show up with the frilly dresses and the leg warmers. Yeah. And it was just amazing to see how many people. I mean, it's a cult classic.
Yeah.
It has its own following.
Yeah.
Like the movie or not, it's not the best movie in the world.
Yeah, but she's iconic in that role too, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, you think of Olivia Newton-John and beyond her role in Grease. I mean, you see she's on the front cover of Xanadu. Everybody knows that image, from the time period. Even if they never saw the movie, I think they would recognize, that was her in that movie.
Yeah, and she was huge at the time. She even met her future husband on the movie.
Yeah.
He was one of the dancers, Matt Latanzi. They had a kid. They got divorced in 95. But yeah, there's even a song, Don't Walk Away, which was added to the soundtrack after they'd already shot the film, and they were like, okay, how are we got to put this in the movie somewhere. Mm-hmm. So they called up Don Bluth and said, hey, we need this animated sequence like next week. Can you do this?
Yeah.
And being the consummate professional he is, he said, sure, I can do that. And so he ended up doing this animated sequence with these, the couple, that scene starts off with them at the Hollywood Bowl. And then the musical number starts, and they both turn into animals.
Yes.
And it's animation, and so they keep evolving into different animals. And I saw an interview with Don Bluth where he even showed, I don't know if you pay attention to the Olivia Newton-John animated character.
Yeah.
She's a bird and then she's a fish.
Yeah.
He actually put leg warmers on the various incarnations of Olivia Newton-John, just so to help you identify with Olivia Newton-John and to keep her character in there.
Beyond the Gene Kelly scene, I mean, that was, again, obviously it was animation, but it was, I love that sequence. And, you know, I don't know what it is about. I think there's a couple other movies I've seen where it's like, you know, the romance scene is animated.
Right.
It's like animation stands in for like, you know, lovemaking, I guess, if you want to say.
Or the love montage.
The love montage.
The falling in love montage,
And, you know, it was great. I mean, seeing Don Bluth's animation, you know, stuff I grew up on.
Yeah.
You know, it's classic stuff. Your fellow El Pasan, is that?
El Pasoan, yes.
Yes,
he was born and raised in El Paso. I think he was whisked away shortly after he was born, much like Gene Roddenberry and Debbie Reynolds. But yeah, I think he was just leaving Disney at the time, just starting on his own.
Yep.
You know, he would go on to do such films as Rock-a-Doodle.
Oh, yeah, classic All Dogs Go to Heaven.
Right. Nim, was that him? Secret of Nim?
Secret of Nim,
okay.
Yep. But, I mean, you know, beyond that, even thinking about, okay, is Sonny Malone really the first dude that Olivia Newton-John's character, Kira, ever fell in love with? Like, she said she had inspired Shakespeare, Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah.
You're telling me this Sonny Malone, from, what's it called, Santa Monica, California, you know, can't dance, you know, it's not very likable. Just, you know, asshole kind of a dude, and she falls in love with him out of all of the romancers of the ages, you know.
You know, it wasn't supposed to happen. It just happened. Right?
Exactly.
She couldn't help it.
Right.
And luckily her parents, Zeus, and I forget her mom's name, but
Hera, I guess.
Hera.
Maybe.
Luckily for them, they don't know the difference between forever and just a moment.
Oh, how romantic.
Right.
That's so sweet.
And you know who else did some of the effects, like it's called slit scan photography. They used it a lot in 2001.
Right.
That was our Greenberg and Associates. They were like hot, and I mean he ended up doing the titles for Flash Gordon the same year.
Yep.
Cool stuff, because I really like some of the other numbers I liked are like the All Over the World segment. That's where they take Gene Kelly clothes shopping.
Yeah.
It's very dated. But just all the effects and like the transitions are cool.
Yeah, those are great.
Like the little
I love
things.
I love those like card, you know, whatever, they're shifting sequences.
Yeah, and then there's a giant pinball set that he's getting bounced around in.
Yeah, which I didn't know at the time, and then I realized, oh, I guess that's a pinball machine that's blown up
with the flags, and he's like punching the bumpers and stuff. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is like, you know, beyond that, there's a theme here about, you know, working to have to live and then working to do what you love.
Right.
And, you know, it's like Sonny Malone, who's like, he doesn't want to have to paint these things and be creative based on someone's, you know, requirements. He wants to be able to like live his life and be a free muse, you know, and just do what he wants. You know,
but then he doesn't know what he wants.
Right, exactly.
And then that's when Kira tells him, oh, then find someone who has a dream and help them achieve the dream. Yeah. And that's where the Xanadu thing comes from.
Yeah.
But you get the idea, like he's sketching stuff, like, and I love the whole Art Deco stuff too.
Yeah.
He's sketching stuff. It's probably not him really sketching.
Yeah. Well, that was the funniest part is like the first scene in the moment besides Gene Kelly playing the clarinet, is Sonny Malone giving up right away. It's just like he's drawing something like, man, I'll never be able to do this.
Right.
What did you say? He's like
5 minutes into the movie, or less than a minute into the movie, he crumples up the paper, throws it out the window, and he's like, what does he say? It's like, oh, maybe dreamers aren't meant to be, or this dream's never meant to be happen. And then of course the crumpled up paper ball flies through the air and then hits the mural.
Yep. Brushes the cheek of Kira. Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And like they never do magic as a number. It's just she's listening to it. It's what draws him into the building, and she's in there roller skating around, disappearing and reappearing.
Yeah. This was one of those movies. Like, do I never need to see it again? Maybe not. But you know, the music. I mean, Magic. I think Magic for me is my favorite song.
Now, had you heard the song before you saw the movie? You must have. No,
I've heard Magic before. I've heard the Xanadu, the song before. but a lot of the other numbers, like I've never heard before. But it's funny because I didn't know what this movie was. I thought it was purely like a roller skating movie. And then, when I watched it, I was like, oh, this whole thing with like, mythology,
right?
And,
Greek mythology.
I was not expecting that at all.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah, no, it gave it like a nice little twist to it, and
yeah.
and I enjoyed it more. But I was like, okay, well then, where's the roller skating? You barely get
not a whole lot of roller skating.
Yeah, not a lot of it.
You got tightrope walking. You got some roller skating, and then what do you think of the end? The end, like she leaves, she goes back. Yeah, she goes back to heaven or wherever, and then, hey, waitress, can you give me another drink or whatever? And she turns around and it's Olivia Newton-John. Yeah. No, I just want to talk to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm so confused. First of all, I want Sonny Malone's jacket. I know that much. The Xanadu
right.
burgundy
the satin jacket. The embroidered Xanadu logo.
I admittedly, I want that.
That is a collector's item.
Yes. So we'll get that straight. Aside from the ending, after that whole musical number, you do all the different genres of music, singing Xanadu, and then you stop, and then he's like, I guess, missing her. It's like, does he not recognize her?
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe. Yeah. I think he does recognize her, but I think maybe she might be just a human woman now who looks like Olivia Newton-John did. I'm not sure. It's ambiguous.
Are there a lot of fan theories out there?
I have never really followed up on that. I'm sure there are.
We have to have some people bring in some fan theories.
Yeah. Definitely would like to hear more. If there are any comments, any fan theories, conspiracy theories about Xanadu, we'd love to hear them.
Yeah, and when they're talking to each other at the end, it's like I don't even think they're like scripted talking to each other. I think they're like, "Whoa, that was. Are we done yet?"
Yeah, they're just ad-libbing. They're off mic.
Yeah, there's one moment in that final scene where you see Sonny, what's the actor's name?
Michael Beck.
Beck shaking his shoulders a little bit, and you realize again why he does not dance in this movie at all.
Right.
If he would have shimmied,
he's doing the whole
shoulder move. Yeah, if he would have shimmied in the audition, they probably would have said, "You know what? Thanks for coming in." But,
he was not a dancer.
Not at all. But for first film that you shared with me, I think this is obviously it's beloved, especially by you. But seeing this film I think is important for me because I love Gene Kelly's stuff.
Yeah,
and then seeing him put in this situation and just like the music and all of it, it's a great flick. For that.
Gene Kelly is a god.
Oh yeah. All right, man. Good Burger and Xanadu in the books.
Episode 1 and done.
Awesome.
Nice.
This was awesome. I had a lot of fun.
It was great.
Hopefully all of you had fun listening.
Thanks again for listening to episode 1 of Film Loop. Stay tuned for episode 2 where we talk about fat kids and outer space. What a combination. We'll see you there. Well, that does it for another episode of Film Loop. Thanks for joining us. If you like what you heard, leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps us out a lot. For references and links mentioned in this episode, visit us online at filmloopshow.com. Don't forget to share your thoughts and comments and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FilmLoopShow. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening. See you next time on Film Loop.
Lovemaking, I guess.